The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, figuring they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Can lightning strike twice at Northwest Stadium? The Chicago Bears say, hell no. Well, we'll find out tonight. And unfortunately for me, I will be finding out getting wet. But it is what it is. I am going to this game with my cousin Howard Berger and his son and his friend Rob. And they're season ticket holders. They love the Bears. Some of us are going to walk out happy tonight and others will not. But all of us will be united in our soaking, it looks like. I was hoping the weather would clear up, but you know, football is played in the elements, and it will be played in the elements tonight with the Commanders moving up to, and I'm kind of curious about this, they moved up to 5.5-point favorites from 4.5, and this is after Dan Quinn revealed over the weekend that we won't see Terry McLaurin tonight, and we won't see Noah Brown, who caught the Hail Mary last year, and it's uncertain if Deebo Samuel is going to play. I mean, can you win a game with Luke McCaffrey catching 8 or 9 passes and Bill running for 100 yards? Yeah, maybe. But you don't have a lot of weapons offensively going into this, and the defense is not that good. The defensive line has been good this year. The secondary is still kind of a mess out there. So I'm kind of curious that the line has moved that much, but it has, and they're going to play football tonight. Now, they want to play this down. But if you watch this on TV tonight, even though it's not a CBS game as it was last year, this is what they're going to be talking about.
Comes down to one last play, and it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line, and the ball is caught! Caught! It's a miracle! It's Noah Brown! Oh, my goodness! This town is going crazy. It's a madhouse in Landover, Maryland. He did it! Oh, this one will be paid back over and over again for decades. The ball tipped by Stevenson. Noah Brown just standing back there all alone. Plucks it out of the air for the victory.
I know this sounds crazy, but there's a method to the madness here. Everyone usually goes and jumps to the ball. You always put one guy behind and try and put one in front and have 2 or 3 go jump for it. And Daniels extending this play, and the time allowed everyone to get down there in position to go toward the ball and be in their spots. And what a game, Jim.
There are no words.
Yeah, you know, where Romo is describing the responsibility of getting somebody behind the line to guard the guy back there who was Noah Brown. Yeah, that was Tariq Stevenson. Tariq Stevenson tipped the pass. He was in front. He should have been in the back. Why was he in the front? Well, he was late getting there because he was trying to taunt the crowd on the last play. And, you know, all those who said, oh, got to be cut, can't stay on the team. He's still there. He's going to be playing tonight. And guarantee you, I would take this to the bank. He won't make the same mistake twice. Now, I doubt it's going to come down to that. But if it does, certainly they're going to be prepared for it. The Bears and, for that matter, the Commanders. This was Dan Quinn earlier this week, asked what he was thinking on the Hail Mary.
Probably like most of us, there's like the longer a scramble goes on a Hail Mary, at least you know the ball is going to get off. So you're not looking down the field too early, but to make somebody miss, you're waiting, and then probably like most of us, a collective gasp. And so I don't know if there was a lot of activity in that little space in between from like he's going to get it off to the catch. I think like everybody just like, and you know, you're waiting and not knowing. And so like that's probably the space that I was at. But it's a play that's also, and I think Aaron Rodgers probably been one of the best that I've seen going against it, of buying time, when to go, how high you have to throw it to create trajectory to go down, because you have to have time for the players to get down the field so far. So it's something that the guys work on. But, yeah, it was rare and fun and all those things.
Hi, Coach. On the same topic, when you're helping the guys prepare this week, how much do you talk about that play and the end of that game versus recognizing Chicago's a different team this year and you have a whole different week of preparation ahead?
Yep, that was the first I talked about it right there.
You haven't adjusted with the team at all?
0.
Do you plan to?
None.
Gotcha. That's all I had. Thanks.
It's last year's story. It was awesome. We loved it. But, it doesn't apply to this week's game at all unless we get into that exact scenario and that exact situation. So then we can talk about it. But until then, we got a lot of stuff to get better at and work on to get ready.
Yeah, zip it, zip it, zip it. That message apparently received loud and clear. Here's Jaden Daniels.
You don't want to look back at last year, the Hail Mary, that. You don't seem to want to do that with a lot of things. Why is that? What don't you want to look back at?
That Hail Mary ain't going to help us win a game on Monday, so what's the point?
That's part of the reason he's so good. He's just focused on the now and not looking back on that. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of pregame discussion, but once the game gets going, I don't think it's going to be that big of a factor. However, there is this analysis today in the Washington Post from Tom Shad, who's their new beat reporter. I think he replaced Nikki Javala, who's gone on to The Athletic. Shad had been with USA Today, and he talked about the play, of course, and the long-term effect on both teams. I mean, they went in diametrical directions after this game. It has been described here as the Hail Maryland or the Madhouse in Maryland. In Chicago, they call it the Fail Mary, and at the NFL Award Show, it was called the Moment of the Year in the NFL. It was play number 962 of 2,589 that Washington ran last year. And you had Jaden Daniels, as we found out later, playing with a broken rib. Remember, he'd been knocked out of the game the week before against Carolina and was uncertain whether he was going to start against Chicago. That was like a game-time decision. I don't think we found out until the inactives were announced, and the game was a 4:30 kickoff. Remember, it had been a 1 o'clock kickoff. It got flexed to 4:30 because of the excitement over the two quarterbacks. And, yeah, there was a reason to believe at that point that even though Jaden was out to a bit of a lead on Caleb Williams, that the Rookie of the Year race was very much alive at that point. It wasn't alive much longer than that. He writes, after the Hail Mary, their paths split. The Commanders weathered a brief losing streak, then won 7 consecutive games, including 5 by 1 score or less en route to the NFC Championship game. The Bears lost their next 9 after the Hail Mary. They fired offensive coordinator Shane Waldron 2 weeks afterwards, and head coach Matt Eberflus followed him out the door 3 weeks after mismanaging the clock during a loss on Thanksgiving. Commanders defensive end Jacob Martin, I'd forgotten about this. Martin was with the Bears last year. Jacob Martin spent last season with the Bears. He recalled a shift in the vibe around his former team in the weeks and months after the Hail Mary, particularly as the coaching staffs became endangered. Quote, you're straining. Everything is all magnified now. You're trying to find, why aren't we winning? Why aren't we winning? It makes it extremely hard to just play ball. So the hangover effect was quite evident for the Chicago Bears. Now, he writes here, this is more from Shad, from a psychological, not physiological, but psychological standpoint. The reverberations of a play such as the Hail Mary are impossible to measure, but there are theories and studies suggesting they do, in fact, exist. The concept of momentum, that recent success will contribute to future success, has long been of interest to psychology researchers, particularly in sports. One 1997 study found evidence of a correlation between hope and the performance of cross-country runners. Another in 2011 looked into the idea of NBA and WNBA players believing they have a hot hand attempting three-pointers at a higher clip after they made one. You always see that watching a game. After he drains this, he's going to have his confidence back. Shooters, they're always told, keep shooting. You'll find it there. In a third study, Dutch rowers were asked to race against a virtual opponent on agrometers. Unbeknownst to the participants, the races were rigged to show that their team's avatar either gained ground on the virtual opponent or gradually fell behind. Researchers found the rowers who believed they were gaining on their opponent and experiencing positive momentum worked harder in the end of the race. Those who saw themselves falling behind put in less work, with one pair in the study giving up altogether. Yeah, it's human nature. I got to believe the Bears are walking out of Landover last year going, oh, man, we had it. And everybody's probably given a stink eye over to Stevenson, but they can't say that out loud either. That adds to the frustration as well. Expectation influences experience, psychiatrist Bernard Beitman said. The idea has been shown over and over in psychology that what you think will happen increases the likelihood of that happening. Beitman, who wrote the 2022 book Meaningful Coincidences, How Synchronicity and Serendipity Happen, said we tend to view coincidences not as random acts, but rather as a part of a narrative. When something wonderful happens, it can lead to a feeling that you're on the right path, that everything is working out. Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a belief in the Commanders after that. Man, this is a magical season. And guys who've been on the team for a long time, like Tress Way, who goes back to the days of Dan Snyder and the miserable seasons. There were seasons like Tress Way was the most valuable player on the team. That's how bad they were. And he had to look at that like, maybe we exercise the ghost. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the last vestige of the stink of Dan Snyder wafting out of the stadium. Who knows? The self-belief is a powerful feeling, said Eric Zillner, professor of whatever he is. They pay him a lot of money to say something like that. Yeah, self-belief is powerful. Way went on to say about the play. He said that there was now a belief, and I think this was true because remember going into that game, Jaden Daniels had pulled off a couple of great performances. The throw that he made to Terry McLaurin to win the Cincinnati game and that Monday night game, and then going on the road just a few days later to go play Arizona and winning those two. There was belief in him, but it wasn't fully formed at that point. And Way said that reinforced their belief that Daniels was a special guy. And that, we later find out, I guess the team probably had an idea of this, that he was playing with a broken rib. And Way went on to say, for something like that to happen in the first year of his career, it just sort of personified a hope that gives us just the guy he is, the competitor that he is. And Daniels, of course, doesn't want to talk about it now, but that has to be the point of the season where it all went wonderful for Washington, even though they did go on to lose 3 games after that. But there was that this guy can do anything kind of thing. Because remember, after that game, they did go on to a 3-game losing streak. But before that, they played the Giants in New York. And the Giants won only 3 games last year, but they were competitive, especially at that point in the season. And Daniels made a couple of really big throws, one in the end zone to McLaurin to lock it up. And that really, gave them, I think, a boost of confidence that once the losing started, those 3 straight losses, that they could overcome that. And then they go on the stretch run to get, as nobody would have predicted, to get to the NFC Championship game. So, here's Daniels, a little beat up again. It's not his first game back after the injury. He showed that he was able to shake off the rust early on last week against Los Angeles, and now should be fine for tonight's game. It'll be interesting to see if he wears the knee brace. I think there is going to be concern about a wet field. I think whatever the condition of his knee is right now, it's healthy enough to play on. But I wonder if they will tell him, watch some of the wiggle here, because you don't want to be in a position where your foot's slipping out from under you, and God forbid, something makes that knee, pop out again, or not pop out, but the ligament, and that, that's what a sprained knee is. It's a partially torn knee ligament. It's healed enough that they feel confident that he can play with a knee brace, but on a wet field, I think that's something that's going to be of concern tonight. When they take the field. Anyway, we'll get to what's going on in college football. We'll save the Belichick stuff for the next hour. But James Franklin is out after a shocking fall in the last 3 weeks, and what it's going to cost Penn State to get out of that. Plus, I saw Mike Loxley with another collapse last week. Could be James Franklin on his heels at some point. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
More Bears Commanders preview coming up at 10 o'clock. Some college football here. And, I guess it had to happen, but the way it happened was shocking. It was just a couple of weeks ago that Penn State has this enormous whiteout game with Oregon that They're going to exorcise the ghosts of the James Franklin past. They're finally going to win a big Big Ten game, which is going to set them on the course to win the national championship, which a number of players came back this year for the purpose of doing that. The NIL makes it more palatable to stay in college now. One more year, raise your draft stock, hoist the natty, the whole deal. And it just blew up in a matter of days, less than 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. They lose a close game. They came back, and they took Oregon to overtime. They lose that game. They okay, close game, fine. You still have the chance to win a national championship, like Ohio State last year. They lost to Oregon early in the season. They lost to Michigan at the end of the season. They still got in the playoff, and they went on to win the national championship. Everything was still there for Penn State. And then they go to UCLA. UCLA was a mess. They were 0-4. They had already fired the coach. Nobody's showing up at the Coliseum to see him play. I mean, I bet a big part of the fan section was Penn State people who had traveled to Los Angeles, a little vacation, watched the Nittany Lions beat up on the Bruins, who were really bad. UCLA wins the game. Okay, so one close loss now turns into two, with the second one a bad loss. You got a perfect chance to get back on track. You're still, there's still a chance. With two losses, you can make it to the playoff. You can do that now. I mean, even though these are bad losses, now the Oregon loss not bad at all, and the UCLA loss is bad, but okay, you come home and you beat the crap out of Northwestern, you're back on. Nope. They lost at Northwestern, to Northwestern at home. It was a homecoming game. They lost on Saturday, and this was James Franklin after the game, probably realizing that he was on his way out.
We shouldn't lose that game. It's 100% on me, and we got to get it fixed. And I will get it fixed. Open it up to questions.
We'll go right here to Mark and then Rich.
James, I think you were getting to the point that your team made a lot of mistakes it usually doesn't make. There's a lot of noise out there about you specifically. Are you worried that the team is distracted by all the publicity around you?
Yeah, we have worked really hard to keep the building as positive and close out all that noise as we possibly can. But for me to say that it doesn't impact them would not be honest.
Yeah. So now they got another coach. They fired Franklin yesterday. Now the buyout's nearly $50 million. There are reports, and this is also part of the issue of what's going on in college sports now. Without really telling anybody, the athletic department was working on a deal to switch over from Nike, which Penn State has been a part of for a long time, going back to the days of Joe Paterno, that they are going to make the switch from Nike to Adidas, and Adidas is paving the way, I guess, to get the next coach in here or in Happy Valley. So they're going to pay the bulk of the buyout, the $50 million buyout, to get rid of James Franklin. Now, immediate speculation will go to Curt Cignetti. Curt Cignetti is a Pennsylvania native. You can hear it in his Western Pennsylvania accent. And he has done an unbelievable job at Indiana. Indiana was a basketball school, is still a basketball school, and they're a lot like Maryland, maybe even more so, but a bowl game is a good year for Indiana. And when my son went there, he graduated in 2013, he would go to the tailgate. They had great tailgates across the street from the stadium, and then everybody would go back to their dorm and do something else. Nobody was going to the games. And now they have reached a point where they are not just top three. They're the highest ranked they've ever been, number 3 spot. But they won by 10 points at number 3 Oregon this past week. My son and a buddy actually made the drive up from Seattle, 4-hour drive, went to the game, obviously had a great time. And the one touchdown that Oregon scored was on a pick six. So this defense is really good for Indiana, and they have a chance to play for the whole thing. So and this is a very good story in USA Today explaining why it's not really realistic to think about a guy like Curt Cignetti going to Penn State. he can win a national championship at Indiana. And let's say he does, and, well, like James Franklin, they were in the semifinals last year. They were in the Final Four of college football, and now he's out of a job. Signetti goes through a rough patch after winning big at Indiana. They won't care. They can turn in a couple of 8-win seasons and you'll be okay. Can't do that if you're at Penn State. So there's no pressure that you're going to face. Maybe it's not as big a deal to win football at Indiana as it is in Penn State, but on the other hand, it's all about winning anyway. And this is a guy who, until he was in his 60s, or 60s, still he's in his 60s, he was not at the highest echelon of college football. He did really well at James Madison, which opened the door for him to get the job. Penn State is still a good job. They have resources, but as is pointed out in this USA Today story, this is in 1986, and national championship pursuits are not reserved to blue bloods. This is the time of the nouveau riche. A basketball school with a sharp coach and an NIL bankroll can pursue glory. Signetti can chase a ring at Indiana without the pressures of Penn State, and it's also been pointed out that his roster is not really filled with blue chippers. There's like 7 guys who are 4-star recruits. The rest of them he just understands how to put together a roster, and he understands, obviously, how to coach them. More from this story in USA Today. NIL changed the game, and that includes the coaching carousel. Even a decade ago, if an Indiana coach thought he had a chance to springboard to Penn State, he'd have been on the next plane out of town. Heck, he'd have walked to State College. Now, that's not necessary. Not when Bobby Knight's basketball school can become a national championship frontrunner in football. The season's longer than ever, too, and this is also very important in the coaching changes. Season's longer. That complicates trying to plunder a playoff qualifying coach. Indiana could take an undefeated record into the Big Ten championship game or beyond. Its season could go as late as January 19th, the date of the national championship. By then, the transfer free agent market will be operating at full speed. You can't hire a coach that late. So if Penn State wants him, they have to wait for him to have a blah season. If he goes where he wants to go, he can't even make the move to Penn State. Would they be willing to wait? It's pointed out here. Would Signetti be up for changing jobs that late in the calendar? Think how far behind the 8 ball he'd be if he took the job that late. And it's also pointed out in this story, look around the Big Ten. None of the guys leading the top 3 teams, Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon, had been a Power 4 coach before their current roles. For every Signetti, there are many Billy Napiers who fizzle in their call-up time at Florida, plenty of Luke Fickles who are flopping at Wisconsin. If it was easy to unearth the next Signetti, everyone would do it. So, this is college football in 2025. It's a long, long season. It goes after the transfer portal opens. The transfer portal is everything and just can't be done. So if you want to, it sounds like if you want to coach, you have to identify a Signetti. You have to find somebody who's succeeding at the lower level and kind of promote him to the, big 4 level. And that may not happen. Now, my son texted me after Franklin was fired, and he said, I know you like Mike Locksley, but Franklin might be the next choice. And I'll say this about Locksley. I do like him. But I've been there the last 2 weeks as they have collapsed in the fourth quarter. And wasn't quite as big a collapse this past week against Nebraska as it was the week before against Washington, where they blew, it was against Washington, where they blew the 20-0 lead in the fourth quarter. But they had the fourth quarter lead, a chance to close it out. Couldn't do it. Even with the ball at the end of the game, there's a wide-open receiver, and it's a freshman quarterback who missed him, Malik Washington, and they wound up losing. Locksley trying to put some lipstick on the pig after the game.
Nobody's going to give us anything, and I'm not coming in here to be anything we get, we're going to have to take or earn, and that's one of the things that, again, a week ago, we didn't make enough plays. This time we get it till there were zeros on the clock, and we're competing, scratching, scraping, and fighting to find a way to win. And I think with that type of effort, you'll see the results of it. Obviously, didn't do it today. credit Nebraska for, Matt and his team. Again, a week later, these guys made plays that they had to make, and it's something you got to give them credit for. But now we'll take it back on the road. We got a short week where we got to head out to California. We'll leave Thursday, so we got to get a lot of work done and get this one behind us pretty quickly while making the necessary corrections for the trip out to LA. And so we'll turn the page quickly. We'll get back on the horse. We'll continue to coach the crap out of this team, and I feel really good about this team. I know you guys are going to write what you got to write, but nobody can watch what we've did today and feel like it's the same old Maryland, because I don't see that, and I'll continue to tell you those things.
And I understand where he's coming from, but it is starting to look like the same old Maryland. They have had good starts in the past. They have had 4-0 starts like they've had this year, and they've collapsed. They won only 4 games last year. What's winnable the rest of the way? There are 2 home games left and 4 road games. They are already 2.5-point underdogs at UCLA on Saturday. They have to play Rutgers on the road. That may be a winnable game, and UCLA may be a winnable game. But if they lose both of those, I don't know if there are any left. Illinois on the road, I don't think that's going to be an easy game. Michigan State to close out the season. Michigan State did lose to UCLA this past weekend at home, so maybe you can beat them. But the 2 that are left at home, they're going to get clobbered by Indiana, and Michigan is probably going to have their way with them on the 22nd of November. So, if this is a season, because it's a new athletic director, and, he's Jim Smith, and he's saying all the right things about Loxley and how much he loves all the coaches at the school, but football drives the bus for money. He knows he's got to have a good football team, and James Franklin is going to be an interesting option. Now, I would think he's going to sit out a year, and I would think that unless it looks really ugly the rest of the way for Maryland in these 5 remaining games, that Loxley will get another year. I would think so. But, Franklin is going to be out there lurking. He's going to be a candidate for a lot of jobs, and Maryland makes a lot of sense because he was here as an assistant coach. He was actually the coach in waiting when Ralph Friedgen was here, and he had a deal in his contract that if the end of Friedgen's contract, if he didn't get the job, there was $1 million bonus for him. Now, he wound up leaving, went to Vanderbilt before that, had success there, and that got him to Penn State to replace Bill O'Brien. But, the big thing about him is he wins. He just doesn't win the big games. He's 4-21 against top 10 teams and 1-18 against top 10 teams in the Big Ten. But Penn State felt good enough to give him in 2021 a 10-year, $85 million contract. And you've got almost $50 million left on that, which is going to be paid off. But if Jim Smith is serious about what he's saying, and his position is, we got good coaches here at Maryland. We just have to give them the resources that they need. And, filling up the football facility is going to be big, and, getting the right recruits in, paying the money. You got to have the NIL money to pay them. You got to bring them here, and you got to fill up the stadium. And that's not an easy thing. I was at both the last 2 games. It was close to a sellout against Washington. Not quite that, maybe the place holds, I think, close to 50,000. I would guess that there were maybe 40,000 there, and 10,000 of them had to be Nebraska fans. Nebraska fans travel. So with what's left, this is a huge game for them this week. That gets them to 5 wins if they beat UCLA, and then if you win one more, you're bowl eligible, and maybe between the Rutgers game on the road or maybe they find a way to beat Michigan State at the end of the year to get in. But these were 2 crushing losses. They had great opportunity to make this into an incredible season, and by being unable to close the last 2 games against Washington and Nebraska has cost them. But weather was good. Had a good time. Took my 3-year-old granddaughter with my daughter and her husband, and she liked the moon bounce inside the football facility, which is the old Cole Fieldhouse. So there's still a lot of good things to do out there. The problem is, got to win games, and they're not winning enough. Coming up in the next hour, more on the Commanders and Bears tonight and other things. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. You talk about someone marching to the beat of their own drum. It was Diane Keaton. First big starring role was in Annie Hall. She had been in the Godfather movies. She was known as an actress, but what a breakout role for her, and totally changed the fashion scene, at least for a while. Wearing what looked like men's clothing out of the Goodwill, but she pulled it off. And at that time, I was a huge Woody Allen fan. I've since soured on him, given the allegations in his personal life, but he made great movies at that time. And Annie Hall was one of my all-time favorites. Sadly, Diane Keaton passed away over the weekend at the age of 79. We'll get to her later in the show. She won an Oscar for Annie Hall, which was, really her first big movie. She had other nominations, but that was the one Oscar that she won in her career. So we're on to a wet one tonight. I've been watching the forecasts, and this one matters to me because I'm going to be at the game, and I'm going to be outside sitting in the seats. So I have to find I have a couple of ponchos in the house. I'll have to pull that out, but we're going to be at the game tonight. And, I feel like they can win, but, the two big factors last year were Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, and neither one's going to play tonight. Yeah, it was Noah Brown who caught the Hail Mary pass, but it was a terrific pass and really a brain fart on the part of the Bears defense, letting Terry McLaurin catch a pass, which gave them about 8 or 9 yards, which made the Hail Mary more possible as Jaden Daniels was able to buy some time and throw it down the field. Neither one is going to be available tonight, and we don't know if Deebo Samuel's going to be able to play. So they're going to be really hurting in the wide receiver area, and the question is, can they win this game without him? I think we're going to see a lot of Bill, especially in the rain, and I think that we will see a defense that has been pretty shaky this year. Maybe they'll be able to confuse Caleb Williams, maybe not. This is Mike Florio, Chris Sims on Pro Football Talk. This is a couple of days ago when the line was still at 4.5. It's now 5.5 in favor of the Commanders, but this was their look at tonight's game.
The Commanders at home are favored by 4.5 points, 49.5 over under. Who do you got?
Yeah, this is another one I've gone back and forth with here. Neither defense is very good. You look at that, I go, man, I could see both offenses scoring points and moving the ball. I worry about the Bears' ability to stop the run a little bit. I do. Washington's become one of the best running football teams in the sport. So that's where you worry. With Jaden Daniels and all that, it's actually I worry more about their passing game and them being explosive and finding big ways more than I worry about their running game. I think the Chicago Bears are going to be able to move the ball up and down the field on the Washington defense. I don't think the Washington defense is all that good. I don't. I think you can run it on them and throw it on them. You just got to figure out what they're doing. They really only play two defenses. They either blitz and play man, or they fake the blitz and play Tampa 2. And I think Ben Johnson's going to look at that and go, well, that. I will defense up and find a million ways to do that. This is going to be one of my upsets here this week. I'm going to go to the Bears in a high-scoring one. I'm not going to bet on it. I'm not. It's not going to be a best bet, but I'm taking Bears 34-31.
We went 14 games without a disagreement, either as to the spread or as to the outcome. And in the last game is our disagreement. The Commanders 35-27. I think back to, and it's easy to focus on the Hail Mary game last year, but Dan Quinn versus Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Look at what we saw in the playoffs.
Know. Right.
And I wonder how much of that carries over when you've got different personnel, but you got the same coach. That chess match, part 2. Who gets the edge? And I just feel like the Commanders right now are a little bit better than the Bears.
Yeah.
The Bears won 2 in a row. Their win over the Cowboys looks a lot better in hindsight when you consider the Cowboys tied the Packers. But I just feel like edge here goes to the home team. They're trying to establish something, and I don't feel confident about this. It's not going to be a best bet, but I'll go Washington 35-27.
I'm playing a little the angle of they had the week off, and Ben Johnson gets in the lab and comes up with some stuff that you can attack this Washington defense. That's what I'm playing. But, yeah, I'm with you. I could see this going either way, and I agree with you that I think Washington's the better football team. I agree with that. This is one where I'm going to play gut and the week off, and Caleb Johnson's motivated to show everybody he's the number 1 pick. It shouldn't have been Jaden Daniels, who everybody thinks should have been the number 1 pick now. So that's why I'm going to favor them.
Caleb Williams, by the way.
Yeah, and if Florio didn't correct Sims, I would have, but maybe that's a lack of respect. Caleb Johnson, no, Caleb Williams. I mean, everybody, flubs up here and there, but nobody's going to mistake Jaden Daniels. And the angle that Florio has there on the Detroit game is interesting. Now, they're different teams, but clearly the Dan Quinn defense out-schemed what the Ben Johnson offense did in the playoffs last year against Detroit. So that may be something to keep an eye on. But, then again, you never know. It's a week-to-week league. Things change all the time. But we do know for sure that we won't see Terry McLaurin or Noah Brown tonight. And we'll wait to see when the inactives come out whether we're going to see Deebo Samuel. A couple of things from Dan Quinn on Saturday when he announced that both McLaurin and Brown are out. And just a couple of things from the news conference that I thought were interesting to listen to. One is about Bill Krotsky-Merritt, who is a sensation. And people wonder why he's only getting 11 carries. What they continue to say is he's getting better, but there are other things when you're out there as a running back that you have to worry about other than running the ball, and they're not quite confident. I mean, their worst fear is that 22 misses a block and number 5 gets clobbered. 5 is the franchise, so you got to make sure he's protected. And this is why Austin Eckler was so valuable to them before he tore his Achilles, because he was a veteran guy. He knew the offense. He knew all the nuances of playing the position, and they were going to sacrifice a little bit in ball carrying because it looks like Bill's got it. Bill knows how to run the football. And he's also, seemingly handling this Horatio Alger story like few are able to do. Here's a guy who was a 7th-round pick, didn't play at all last year in Arizona because they determined that he'd used up his eligibility early on, stayed with the schools, stayed on the scout team, bided his time, played in the All-Star game, got a chance to show what he could do at the pro day, and here he is. And on top of that, handling the attention that he's getting, including last week where he seemed to be totally in awe. In fact, let me find that first. This was Tom Brady does the LFG player of the game, and you can determine for yourself what that is. But you get a little football, and you get an interview with Brady, and so I just was really taken by just how much Bill was in awe of being interviewed by Tom Brady. So if you missed this last week, this was Brady with Bill after his performance against the Chargers.
Congratulations, Jacory. 2 touchdowns today. You had a season-high 111 yards just on the ground. That doesn't even count you catching balls out of the backfield. How much does this day give you confidence here in the second quarter of the season?
It definitely gives me a lot of confidence. I want to say thanks to God, my teammates, my family for just being with me the whole way. So it definitely gives me a lot of confidence.
Yeah, they sure do. We all have these unique journeys to the NFL, and you bounced around a few college teams, a 7th-round pick this year. But tell me, how's it feel to have a great home here in Washington?
It feels amazing. I'm so thankful for this organization for believing in me, for trusting me, and I'm so thankful and just excited to be here.
Yeah, just take advantage of those opportunities. My last question, and we talk all game, and we use your name Bill up here so often in the booth, but we know it's from a cartoon, Little Bill. And that was your childhood haircut. Do you hear chants down on the field from all the Commanders fans saying, Bill, 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 when you're out there on the field?
I definitely hear them, and I love it. And I'm so thankful that they support me, and it just made me want to give my all to them.
Yeah, you're doing that, my man. Keep up the great work. You're off to such a great start this year. Keep it going. Congratulations on the win.
Appreciate you, Tom. It's an honor to talk to you.
Same here, Bill.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And you can hear it like, oh, I'm being interviewed by Tom Brady. But again, overall, the attention that he's getting, Dan Quinn's very impressed.
One thing that's nice to see, he's got like real humility about him. And there was times last year on a different level of Jaden, like they're not comparing. I want to make sure I'm super clear on that. But what I also noticed on him was like this strive to improve, the humility to get better. And I see that with Bill. I love the fact that J Mac and Chris, are also leaning into him. So it's nice to see that as a young player, like you can feel his energy to improve and get there. And so I like seeing where he's going, and he's putting in a lot of work, Nicky, to get there. But I think just seeing who he is consistent as a person makes me feel better that he's not on the roller coaster as easy as that could be for a young guy coming in. And so I've been impressed by that.
Yeah, and once he picks up more of the offense, ability to pass block, things like that, that's going to mean a bigger role for him. One of the other surprises this year is Jeremy Reeves, who, in the great tradition of guys like Rusty Tillman, has been a special teams standout. He's the captain of the special teams. He's been an all-pro as a special teamer, and he's been around a while. I bet he's pushing 30. But he's now emerged as a very valuable option at safety, getting a lot of snaps at safety. And Dan Quinn said it's not because of injury. This is because of what he showed in training camp.
I saw the speed. I think it was evident to me early on, maybe this spring, maybe into training camp, but I felt it. It felt at another level than even in 2024. He's always been a good communicator on the field. Like I felt that in special teams, on the defensive role, but I saw the speed, the playmaking ability, and in the preseason, you saw that too. The tackling, the hitting, the physicality, it just carried over on the defensive reps. So now that he's had a few games since Will's injury, he's gotten more reps, more communication, and more flow with the other guys as well. So he's somebody that we would count on in any situation. And, man, we're certainly thankful that he's the one stepping into that spot. Like, talk about a man capable of leading and being in charge of communication and get it. Like Jeremy Reeves should be at the front of that line.
You mentioned Will. That's Will Harris. He broke his leg. I would think that he'll be back at some point this season, but there's no projection for when that might be. All right, the Bill Belichick Michigas. There's been some reporting that was done by WRAL-TV, and the reporter's name is Pat Welter. And he was on the Dan Patrick Show last week discussing what has become apparently a dysfunctional mess with parents saying they're not getting any communication, that Belichick only talks to the players that he brought in through the portal, that he and Mike Lombardi, who is making $1.5 million a year, got very arrogant, calling this the 33rd NFL team and thinking that they were smarter than everybody else. And, in fact, they've been absolutely embarrassed, and they don't know how to pick players. This is part of their reporting. In Mike Lombardi's first season as Carolina GM, that's what he is now, the GM of University of North Carolina football, he has struggled at the most important position. Belichick and Lombardi were able to retain quarterbacks Max Johnson, that's Brad Johnson's son. Remember Brad Johnson here. He had played, I think, only a game last year, broke his leg, so he was still around. And Bryce Barker, a four-star high school recruit from North Carolina. They landed Ryan Brown in the transfer portal from Purdue. In April, Brown transferred back to Purdue. He left Purdue, walked into North Carolina, go, oh, boy, this is a mess. And Purdue's not good. Purdue stinks, too. He went back. Lombardi tried to rescind Brown's NIL money. According to sources, Brown got a lawyer involved and reached a settlement. Former South Alabama quarterback Gio Lopez transferred to UNC in the spring. He was named the team starter and is making $2 million this season, according to sources. In 4 games, he threw for 430 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. He was injured in the second half of the University of Central Florida game. Johnson started, that's Max Johnson, started against Clemson, a game they were never in. They lost 38-10. And according to sources, Johnson hasn't been making any NIL money. Here's more from Pat Welter as he talked to Dan Patrick last Friday.
We're coming off the statement, right? We have this statement that comes out late the night prior, and it's very brief, and it comes from Bubba Cunningham, and it comes from Bill Belichick, basically saying Belichick's committed to UNC football, and UNC Athletics is committed to him. And this was on the heels, and based on conversations I had yesterday with sources, multiple levels, UNC decision makers, they wanted to calm the noise. They wanted to calm what they referred to as rumors. And those rumors were related to 247 Tar Heel Sports report about there being exit strategy conversations and other reports of Bill Belichick looking into triggering his own contract. Now, I spent basically all day on the phones trying to run this down. And I think it's clear. I think it's important to note that I was told by multiple levels of UNC decision makers and my colleague Brian Murphy that there were no exit strategy conversations, that there were no conversations of Bill triggering his own buyout. But I have to acknowledge, right, that That does not mean necessarily that that did not happen. Like, I'm not in those rooms. These are what these people are telling me. They're all telling me the same thing. So there's an obligation, I think, to report it in fairness. But I think you also have to acknowledge there's a gap there. We can only know so much. And I respect Andrew Jones, who had that report. So I think you have to just take the information and sort it out with what you know and what you want to believe.
Is Bill Belichick coaching North Carolina against Cal a week from Saturday?
I can't tell you. I just know that this is escalated day by day. And I would say hour by hour. To be quite literally, Dan, minute by minute. I'll tell you this morning, I sent an email to UNC Athletics trying to get confirmation of a player to see if he was still with the program. An hour later, the player I asked about has a graphic ready to go on social media. This just broke from running back Caleb Hood. After much thought, prayer, and discussion with my family, I've decided to retire from football. My journey at UNC has been special, and I appreciate my time here. You can look on social media if you want to see that full statement. That is the player I asked about because of a tip that I got there. Ironic in a way, Dan, because this season, if you remember that first game versus TCU, there was that one moment where everyone, all the hype, all the buzz, which was so real, right? This was incredible. Carolina drives down their first possession of the season. Caleb Hood scores the touchdown. The place goes bonkers. Skip Bayless had some tweet about it being amazing. I know. I was like, this guy's Nick Saban. I'm like, he's going to do it. They're doing it, you know? And it has been downhill ever since. And it's fitting poetry that I think now Caleb Hood, after this week, is leaving the program. And obviously I'm going to look into more as to why. But I think just kind of that paints a picture for you where we're at.
I don't know what role the media played in this, the national media, in hyping this up. It's Belichick, it's North Carolina, it's the ACC, it's not the SEC or the Big Ten. Certainly he can win more than Mac Brown does when Mac would win 6 games. Occasionally he'd win, a few more and go to a bowl game there. But locally, did you guys have the same expectations as maybe the national media had on Bill Belichick?
Yeah, we're all complicit in this in a way. Right. And I really don't fault. My point of my story was never to fault the people that decided to hire Bill Belichick. I think you could certainly make an argument they should have vetted this more. Right. Because they have access to that information that nobody else has during their hiring process. But yeah, I think we were all part of the hype, and how could you not be? This is an incredible story. This is the story of my lifetime. It's certainly the biggest thing I've ever covered. And I grew up in New England. I'm from Londonderry, New Hampshire. As a student at Emerson College, I got to go to the Super Bowl versus the Giants. I asked Bill Belichick a question at the Super Bowl. And then for me to come to Carolina, and then for him to end up here, and I'm covering him breaking news about his hiring process after Mac Brown was fired around Thanksgiving, which is really when this all started for me. It's been a trip. So I think, I've tried to just I tell people I'm trying to bring the same energy and the same passion and same disciplined reporting that I did to the hiring process, that I did to the excitement and to the fun, and what I'm doing right now to, I guess if you want to call it, downfall. But there's no agenda here. I'm just trying to tell people what I know. I've been covering this team for 4+ years. I know a lot of people, and people are very, very upset. And when you look at the results on the field, when you're going to be the highest paid employee in the state, and you're going to be one of the worst teams in all of college football. That's not me saying that, Dan. That is statistical fact. Completely uncompetitive in Power 4 games. 120-33 is the scoring differential. People deserve to know what's going on and why, and I think our reporting has shed a light on that.
Well, we'll see what happens against Cal this week. If this is another embarrassing performance, I don't know how much longer this can go on. And, remember the girlfriend, Jordan Hudson, she was the center of the storm now. She's not even a big factor anymore. It's the whole program, which is a complete mess, it appears, partly due to the arrogance of 2 guys who spent their lives in professional football, don't know anything about putting together a college team. Just the evidence of the quarterback position, where they're now left with a guy who's bounced around to a bunch of schools. I bet this is year number 6 for Max Johnson. And that's not a guy who's going to, make anybody's eyes light up and what you could do. I mean, they just I've seen this happen in the radio business too, and it's seemingly happening in Chapel Hill. And we'll see where this goes. But at least they're coming off a weekend where they didn't play. They had another embarrassing performance. The heat would be turned up even more. Coming up, as I often tell you, the most interesting reading is found in the obituary page. And it was a rough weekend for people in my business. I'll talk a little bit about Craig Heist and also the shocker, finding out that Diane Keaton died at the age of 79. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Rams up at 11 o'clock. I tell you about the interesting reading that I find in the obituary page. There's actually an obituary from the weekend about the writer of obituaries, or for many years, someone who wrote obituaries in the Washington Post. His name was Bart Barnes, passed away at the age of 83. And it says in his obituary, Mr. Barnes delighted in telling the stories of less heralded subjects, people like Stephen N. Jones, one of the last Washington area doctors to make house calls, and Helga Stein, a Holocaust survivor who lived by her wits on the streets of Berlin, as Mr. Barnes put it, before settling in the Washington area where she became known as an unofficial neighborhood granny. Of all the jobs that Bart had in journalism, he often said he loved obituaries most because of how meaningful they could be to writers, said Adam Bernstein, a former Post obituaries editor. He loved that he could have that kind of connection with the community and not just the obvious compliments, which he received plenty. Quote, he was fascinated by how families responded to stories, as when one man's ex-wife called to say that he had been far too kind to her former husband, even though she admitted the obit was accurate. Rest in peace, Bart Barnes. Also, rest in peace, Diane Keaton. I had not heard that she was ill. She was 79 years old. She made a movie as recently as last year, and she made a film almost 50 years ago, which to me was, until I learned more about Woody Allen in recent years, my favorite movie of all time. It was Annie Hall. And came out when I was 19 years old, and gave hope, I guess, that even a Nebish could attract someone like Diane Keaton, who was a little bit flighty, but played this role so well. And she talked about 15 years ago. This was an interview with Katie Couric on NBC about Diane Keaton at the age of 31. She'd been around as an actress for a while, and she had been in the first two Godfather films, which are two of the best movies ever made, but her role, wasn't that big. She was Kay Adams. She was Michael Corleone's wife in the film. She also appeared in Godfather 3, but she was not really a comedic actress, certainly not known as that. And she had made a couple of films with Woody Allen, played against Sam, but they were lesser films. This was a movie for her. This was Annie Hall, and this was the performance of her lifetime, and she discussed getting the role with Katie Couric.
Were you in love with Woody Allen during those movies?
I had a huge crush on Woody right from the moment I saw him. I was auditioning for Play It Again, Sam, and he was 5'7", and he was a relatively short. He is a relatively short fellow. And I did my audition, and they were worried that I was going to be too tall. So they put his head down, and they measured us. And I got the part because I wasn't taller than he was. So, this is like the way it began. And he was hilarious. And I think that the thing about Woody that's so interesting is, how did I get to be his friend? I don't know how I got to be his friend, because it's hard to become a friend of Woody's. He's a very, very private person, and yet I'm his friend. Annie Hall, for example. Annie Hall, that was a movie that was completely effortless.
Relationship, I think, is
that
like
was
shock.
so easy
move forward or it
that it's kind of that never happens. There was no. It was just a charmed experience, and it was. Everything you did, there was no marks exactly, and you just did. We did stick to the script, but it was about the easiest thing I've ever done in my life.
It was about you, wasn't it, in a lot of ways? I mean,
In
didn't
some
Woody
ways, I
Allen
think.
write this for you, about you? Because I know, was your real name Diane Hall?
My name is Diane Hall.
And people used to call you Annie?
Never. They never called me Annie. No, they always called me Diane or Di Stuck. When I was really young, it was Diety diapers. I mean, really nice things like that. So, ordinary, very ordinary type person. So I think he captured the essence of that, yeah.
And this is kind of the essence of the movie. If you haven't seen it, if you have seen it, you know what it's about. And there's a tennis, the indoor tennis at that time was big in Manhattan in the 70s. Tennis in general was big. So he plays doubles with another pair there, and he's not paired with Annie Hall. She's paired with his friend. And so after they are finished and they've showered and you see her wearing the typical Annie Hall clothes, there's this kind of flirting that goes on, started by Diane Keaton with Woody Allen.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi.
Well, bye.
You play very well.
Oh, yeah? So do you. Oh, God, what a dumb thing to say, right? I mean, you say it, you play well, and then right away I have to say you play well. Oh, God, Annie. Well, oh, well. La-di-da, la-di-da, la-la, yeah.
You want a lift?
Oh, why? You got a car?
You mean no, I was going to take a cab.
Oh, no, I have a car.
You have a car? So, I don't understand. If you have a car, so then why did you say, do you have a car, like you wanted a lift?
I don't know. I wasn't... I got this VW out there. What a jerk, yeah. Would you like a lift?
Sure. Which way are you going?
Me? Downtown.
I'm going uptown.
Oh, well, I'm going uptown, too.
No, wait a minute, you just said you were going downtown.
Yeah, well, but I can...
I'm sorry.
I can go uptown, too. I live uptown, but what the hell? I mean, it'd be nice having company, I mean, I hate driving alone.
Yeah?
And she turns out to be a terrible driver, but it's a great, rom-com. And she wins in 1978. She wins the Oscar at a time when the acceptance speeches didn't go on forever.
The winner is Diane Keaton and Annie Hall.
It's simply terrific. Naturally, I'm very honored to have been nominated with actresses like Jane Fonda and Shirley MacLaine and Anne Bancroft and Marsha Mason. This is something. Anyway, Annie Hall was a wonderful experience for me, and I just would like to say thanks to Woody and thank you. Thank you very much.
And as you can hear, truly herself, and she dressed like Annie Hall for the Oscars. She wore a linen jacket, 2 full linen skirts, a scarf over a white shirt, and a black string tie, high heels, and socks. That was the look that created a sensation at that period of time. She won, that movie won 3 other Oscars besides her Oscar. And she received 3 other nominations, didn't win, but nominated for the movie Reds, Marvin's Room, and also Something's Gotta Give in 2003. And it just shows you the length and breadth of her career, that Annie Hall was in the 70s, Reds was in the early 80s, Marvin's Room was in the 90s, and 2003, Something's Gotta Give. So rest in peace, Diane Keaton, who gave a lot of us a lot of enjoyment over the years, in mostly in movies. I think she did some television, but mostly movies. Said she did not want to do Broadway. She said, night after night doing a play, that's my idea of hell. She loved doing movies, and she was great at movies, all through the decades. And so sad. She never married. She did have affairs with Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, and Al Pacino, but she did not get married. She adopted 2 children, and they survive her. So Diane Keaton dying at 79, and sadly, and a number of people in the business have talked about him. I didn't find out about this till after the show on Friday, but Craig Heist passed away at the age of 66. His wife found him last week. I think it was Thursday or Friday. And, the way I would describe him is if you took Norm from Cheers and you put a credential around his neck and you put him in a press box every night. And he was, as I said in one of I think Mike Wise had a post on Facebook, he may be the most prolific press boxer of all time. And we don't really see people who do the kind of work that he does, but the information that gets out to the wire services, the sound bites that come from the clubhouse, they were generated by Craig. Craig was there night after night after night. He did the post-game show for the Nats on JFK. He was just around all the time and doing his job and loving doing his job and, didn't express jealousy for other people who had higher paying jobs. He was a grinder. He did it night after night after night, and he did it with a smile. And that can grate on you after a while doing a kind of job like that, wear you down, where you got to sit out rain delays, 150 baseball games a year, 2 different cities. But he just relished it. And it's so sad to see him, along with others who have passed away this year, like John Feinstein dying early in the year, others who have passed away. And it's just something that makes you wake up and say, man, I wish I would have had a longer conversation with him. I wish I would have, last time I saw him, talk more. I don't know. These are things that you think about. But I think that if you look on social media, there have been a lot of tributes and national publicity, too. Like the New York Post had something. I think there was something on Yahoo about it. He would have been amazed at how many people really remembered him for someone who, was not really well known. Most people didn't really know him unless you listen to a lot of, baseball and baseball post-game shows and stuff. But, man, that one hurt. Craig was a good man, a really good man, and worked really, really hard at something that sounds great to be paid to watch baseball games. And it is great. But it ain't great to do it every night after night after night. And he did it. And he was there. It was rare that you would go to a sporting event and not see Craig Heist in the press box, which is going to make it so strange from now on. Bram is coming up next, and I will see you back here tomorrow morning after the game at 9 a.m.